George W. William Veditz was born in Baltimore, Maryland, way back when in 1861. August 13, 1861 to be exact. When he was 8 years old, he was struck with scarlet fever that left him fully deaf. When he was born, he went to a bilingual school in Baltimore, and the reason he did this was that his parents were from Germany and spoke German. At that school, they used German as well as English, and they used them both to teach. So 140 years ago, we had bilingual schools. When he became deaf, he was put in the Maryland Residential School for the Deaf, where he graduated when he was 14 or 15 years old. He didn't have a lot of money, so he decided to stay and work for 1 year. He worked for the principal. He was also the secretary for the president of the school there, where he could save a little bit of money until he was ready to go 1 year later. And he attended Gallaudet, where he graduated with the highest honors. So now our GPA scale is A, B, C, D numbers. Back then it was more mathematical. It was percentages, such as 98.4%. So he graduated from Gallaudet in 1884, where he went back to the Maryland School for the Deaf, but this time as a teacher. He taught for 4 years. He also married there. He married his wife, and he had his eye set on Colorado, but we're going to wait a minute to talk about that. While he was still a teacher at the School of the Deaf, he set up the Maryland Alumni Association. And that played an instrumental part for Gallaudet signing up their own alumni association. He then moved to Colorado. He worked as a teacher at a residential school there, along with his wife, who grew up in Colorado. They moved back together and taught there. So he was also a member of the bird watching group, and he was very involved in chess. He played a lot of chess. He was a very talented chess player and got to the point where he almost beat the chess grandmaster in chess, who didn't like that very much. In 1884, he became president of NAD, and it was a very important time. So at this time, the government grouped deaf people in with prisoners. They were worried that criminals at that point were not allowed to work for the government from that point forward, but deaf people were also placed on this blacklist, and Veditz didn't like that and told them, I really don't think that that's fair that you place deaf people on this list, and we're going to fight back for this. A vote happened, and deaf people were removed from this list and no longer associated with criminals who could not work for the government. And now today they are allowed to work for the U.S. government, which is really good on his part. So there was a vote for president in 1903, and oral schools were being set up at this time. They were showing up everywhere. It was coming to America from Europe. And so Veditz decided that he needed to film to start a new wave of excitement for ASL. And he collected money so that he could record. He thought that they needed some new clear signers to show the language. He himself was a great storyteller. And in 1913, one really famous sentence that he said in his speech, a quote from this speech was, "As long as we have deaf people in the world, we're going to have sign language. And as long as we have film, we can preserve signs for the future, and will be able to pass it down. My hope is that you all love, support, and cherish our beautiful sign. and as a humblest gift from God that we received that. That was very impactful for me, what he said there, and it's something that you should remember as well. So the film became pretty famous, and the Library of Congress in 1913 did preserve it and put it in their archives. It's called the National Registry, so that this would never be forgotten, and from this point forward, sign language would be remembered. Veditz died in 1963 at the age of 67. And I think we can all remember him for his advocacy of deaf rights, as well as for his institution of preserving ASL on film. For the US and for the world.